Dr. Todd McClain provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338 or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen, Winthrop Edition. I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner, and this week I have the pleasure of welcoming the real-life Dr. Doolittle, Dr. Antwain Maurice, or as we knew him at Winthrop, Mo Howard, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. How you doing, Mo?
Doing well. I'm doing well, man. I really appreciate the invite, man. I thank you for reaching out to me. I'm happy to be a part of this.
Oh, no problem. I mean, Mo, from our days at Winthrop, he was soft-spoken, but always had a presence. So I'm going to see how this interview goes. Let's see if he's changed a little. So you're from Marion, South Carolina. Just give us a roadmap into the childhood of a young Maurice Howard growing up in Marion, South Carolina.
Man, probably not too much different from a lot of people from the rural areas of South Carolina. You know, grew up with not a lot of resources. Pretty poor background as far as economic resources, but rich in love. Just grew up in a small town, small people. Everybody knows everybody. You know, you kind of had to be on your best behavior at all times because, you know, you were liable to get spanking from anybody in the neighborhood if you were caught misbehaving back when we did the whole neighborhood community helping raise kids. So, you know, always had an interest in animals, man. I mean, from a very, very young age, drove my parents crazy. You know, they didn't know what to do with me. I didn't know what to do with myself. I just always was in a ditch in the swamps, a lot of swampy areas around the Carolinas, you know, looking for crawdads, you know, turtles, you know, fish, whatever I can do, man. Just always kind of off doing my own little thing, you know, staying involved in sports and stuff like that, but still always kind of doing my own little thing, just really interested in nature and biology. So that's kind of what sparked, you know, my interest. And luckily I've been able to shape that interest in animals and nature into a pretty good career.
Okay, nice. So you mentioned how you fell in love with pets early. Do you remember your first pet?
My first pet, you know, I had quite a few. My first pet was, you know, a turtle. I had, you know, they were turtles always around, man. That's my favorite animal. So that's kind of where I started, man. I always liked turtles. So I had this snapping turtle, this alligator snapping turtle. The thing was ugly. I mean, if you ever seen an alligator snapping turtle, you know, they don't look good, and you know, they look like little dinosaurs. But I was intrigued by that, you know, and from there, you know, I kind of owned all types of things, man, and it was mainly things that I could catch. You know, I had a lot of weird things. Of course, I had fish and things like that, but goldfish, etc. But it was really, you know, some of the more exotic animals that I was able to capture around my home environment that I really enjoyed.
Okay. So, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that your first pet was a turtle. I've always wanted to own a turtle. So just give me the pros and cons of having a turtle.
Man, they're pretty cool, man. They're pretty laid back. You don't have to do much for turtles, man. Just keep them fed and keep the water clean, man. Honestly, that's the main thing. They can be a little bit stinky, so and they can also carry, you know, you got to, you know, wash your hands. If you got young kids, you want to always make sure when they're handling them, they're washing their hands because, you know, they can carry certain bacteria like salmonella. So that's one of the main things that you have to look out for is, you know, there's nothing wrong with owning them, but you definitely have to make sure you sanitize them and being careful, you know, once you touch them and clean them around the tanks and stuff.
Great. All right. So just talk about some of the lessons you learned from your parents and the other people that you idolized growing up.
So my parents, I'll start with my mom. Mom, major influence, you know, like most people. Mom gave me that foundation in church and religion, you know, had me in church, you know, from a young age, you know, We went to one of those churches where you go in at 8 or 9 o'clock, you didn't get out about 3:30, then you went back at 5 and stayed the rest of the night. And so I didn't love it so much when I was growing up, but, as I became an adult, I realized how much that positively influenced, my journey and kept me grounded in my faith, through the courses of life. She was also, always the one that kind of made things happen with regards to birthdays, holidays. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of resources, but it wasn't clear that we didn't have a lot of resources to me growing up. It was when I got older that I realized how really poor we were, because they just always did a good job working together to show us, that we were loved and cared for. So Dad, he was always he was a people person. So he's probably where I get some of my more socialite skills from. Always kind of the life of the party. Everybody kind of liked my pops. Great at, sports and athlete, really always was like the town coach for all the kids in the neighborhood. Still does it to this day in his 60s. Always a presence for a positive influence for the kids around the neighborhood, including myself growing up. So, I take a lot of those attributes with me as well as I matriculate through my journey.
Great. All right. So, let's matriculate to Winthrop, the next step in your journey. We're both members of the illustrious class of 1999 that forever changed the landscape of Winthrop University. What attracted you to the campus and becoming an Eagle?
Well, I'd say that Winthrop, my sister went to Winthrop first. So, that was my first real look at Winthrop University. I mean, we would drop her off and, pick her up, when she graduated from high school in I believe, 94, I believe. And so attended Winthrop while I was, in junior high school. And so I was always on the campus, with her. I also have a lot of family in Rock Hill. And so quite a few aunts and uncles and things like that. So we were up there a lot. I was up there a lot as a child. But I really originally wanted to go to Florida State. That was my plan. I was going to be a Florida State Seminole. That was my favorite football team. I had dreams of being a Seminole and working with their football team as a trainer. Had gotten to do some of that in high school. I kind of gave up sports, football to be able to go that route and be a part of, a football, program like that. And, Dad was like, how much does it cost to go to Florida State? And I was like, I can get a scholarship, Pops. It ain't no problem. Woo. I'm going to be there. I didn't know. Unbeknownst to me, my dad had talked to my high school coach, who had already started talking to Florida State's training staff, and told him I wasn't going. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And when my high school coach, he was like, "Yeah, I had talked to Florida State, and but your dad said you wasn't going." And I was like, "What?" And so I remember being real angry at my pops. So I was like, because he didn't tell me he did that, and so by that point, I was like, man, I can't believe this. And so I was kind of scrambling. So then I thought about University of South Carolina. And to be honest, honestly, I didn't get in. I didn't get into University of South Carolina. So, I remember having only $35 left in my name. And I was like, I got to get into school. And I remember writing this passionate letter to Winthrop, about, how I would be a great student. Just give me a chance, et cetera. And luckily, man, they gave me a chance. And, I couldn't imagine having gone anywhere else because the connections and the friends I made at Winthrop, it was a perfect fit for me. And, I even forgave my pops. So I was like, Pops, I was mad at you for a long time for not letting me go to Florida State, man. I was hot. And so Winthrop don't even have a football team. I was like, so, but it all worked out, man. And, I'm so happy that Winthrop was the place that I ended up in. From an educational background, I've had, top quality education, been able to get through medical school with no issues, one of the top performers, based on my training at a predominantly liberal arts school. And I have a biology background. So that just lets you know how good of a program, a college Winthrop is.
Okay. Well, first off, rest in peace to Coach Bowden. I think I remember you used to wear a Florida State hat all the time.
All the time, man. I was Florida State, man. I was in it so deep, man. If they would lose, I wouldn't talk to people. I would go, I had it bad. I'm glad I'm not like that anymore. They had some losing years, so that kind of broke me out of that. But I was pretty bad. I was over the top fan.
Well,
Oh no, not the University of Miami. Oh man, stop the
yeah.
interview. I'm out of here.
Well, I'm sort of in the same boat as you. We used to have the glory days, and now we're like mediocre
Yeah.
at best. But yeah, as we continue with the Winthrop discussion, you pledged Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. Got your bachelor's in biology, like you mentioned, in chemistry. Um, like, just speak of those lasting memories. Like you said, you had the friendships, and you forgave your dad. But when we were all on campus, and um, you know, we never foreshadowed what the future would hold. Some of us never really thought we would graduate from college. So um, just talk about being around all of that, not only Black excellence, but just, you know, all of our peers that at the time, we were just coming into our own, growing up, finding ourselves, and looking at us
Oh,
now.
oh man, you talk about some good times, man, and it's always funny looking back on the Winthrop days, man, because we had a lot of fun, man. We had a lot of fun. I mean, we got it in at Winthrop. Winthrop was like a little HBCU within a public school. I mean, a lot of the Black community, we stuck together, we hung together, we really enjoyed each other's company. We were from various parts of the Carolinas as well as other places, and we really got to learn a whole lot about each other's backgrounds. Like you said, I played Phi Beta Sigma my sophomore year. I mean, after that, I was just this party animal. All I wanted to do was figure out the next social event to plan, and the school was like, I'm gonna get my schoolwork done just so I can stay here and party a little harder. So, but it was interesting, man, because you saw a lot of guys and young ladies within the university that had talent. You knew they were special. You knew they had these different gifts. Now, what you didn't know is how those gifts would manifest, and myself included. I feel like all of us, were great people, man. I just think about how many friends I had at Winthrop, man. It was just like every day you had this big group and conglomerate of people you just tight with, men and women from all over the place. And so we'd hang out on the steps in front of the cafeteria, in front of different areas, we play, work out together, play sports together, it was just, a really, really positive experience. And, I'm so proud of how much, those same peers that we used to laugh and clown around and not really be too super serious, how well everybody's done in their own right with regards to their professional career, their development. We got business owners, we got doctors and lawyers, we got teachers, we got principals, we got musicians, we got, we just got all types of stuff, judges. And so I'm like, when I think back to, it's almost like I want us all to get back together, like the homecomings, and just reflect on what we would have thought if we could go back to when we were at Winthrop. How would we have seen? Would we have believed it? Would I believe that I would be a veterinarian having the success I'm having? I wouldn't have, And so, but it's just interesting how life happens, and very happy to have made those long-lasting friendships. Me and my frat brothers, we are on the phone and on Zoom meetings and in constant contact. There's other members, that I've developed relationships with, that we stay in touch when I'm in different areas and different parts of the country. So long-lasting friendships, man. I feel like lifelong. So I'm not sure if it's like that everywhere, but I'm definitely happy to be a part of the Winthrop family.
All right. Well, you moved on to Tuskegee University, got your doctorate,
Yeah.
then residency at Stanford University. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Pretty happy about that, man. Very fortunate to have those opportunities. I definitely was blessed. I mean, I was a good student and had good GPA and things, but you're talking about getting into veterinary school, which is very hard. There's only about, there's a lot less veterinary schools than there are human medical schools. So the competition to become a veterinarian is stiff. And so you're talking about people with very high GPAs that I'm competing against. And so, Tuskegee University is the only historically Black college and university to have a veterinary medical school. So I was fortunate enough to be accepted into Tuskegee University, which was an experience all on its own because, I talked about Winthrop being a small Black HBCU within a public But, I actually ended up going to an HBCU. That was one of the, original HBCUs. And it's different. I mean, it is totally different. When I walked on campus, my first professor called me by my name, my entire name. Never seen this guy a day in my life. There's a black doctor, white lab coat. He was like, Antwain Maurice Howard. And I'm like, whoa, like, hold on, what did I do wrong? But it was clear from the very first day that they were there to support and to promote Black excellence. And so, from there, I went on and, became the president of the medical school, 4-year program. It was just such a great support system for me. But we were a very diverse vet school. It's a HBCU, but I had colleagues there from all walks of life. I'd say, there were a lot of people, Caucasian from different parts of the United States. There were people from different countries. There were people from all over. And I just remember learning. It was like a melting pot. I remember learning so much about culture and things at Tuskegee University. And then from there, I was able to, go on into the specialty of lab animal medicine, which is more research-based at Stanford University. Excellent opportunity. I mean, Stanford is one of the top schools. And so just to be able to be accepted into a program like that to advance my education, it was really, really a blessing. And I stayed at Stanford for about 3.5 years working for their School of Medicine. Got to enjoy the California life, living in the Bay Area. Started to get ingrained in that culture in California, which is totally different from the South, which is all I was used to. I remember when I got accepted at Stanford, my mom was scared to death because I was going so far away from home. And, but I enjoyed those types of, opportunities. And I love California. I love the Bay. The Bay is very different from L.A. People think it's the same. It's such a big state. There almost can be different states within themselves. I was more in Oakland, San Jose, Sacramento area in the Bay, and, went to LA quite a few times. But in general, just another melting pot of culture, great food, great weather, and, met a ton of great people during my time at Stanford University, as well as learn, things that have carried me a long way in my career.
Great. So you ended up moving to Indianapolis. That's where you're currently residing. And you started Howard Veterinary Services back in 2013. It was a mobile practice providing veterinary services to undeserved communities and individuals unable to, take their pets to clinics. Is that a byproduct of growing up in Marion, you feel, and wanting to fill that void for others?
Yeah, I mean, I've always, grown up without a lot. And so my primary job is in research and drug development. So work for a large contract research organization. So dealing with things like, cancer cures, diabetes, HIV, COVID is one of the big things we do right now for a lot of the pharmaceutical companies. But, secondary to that, I'm always a veterinarian. I like people, and so while I was in Indiana, after leaving Stanford, I really saw a need. People would stop by once they found out I was a veterinarian and hey, can you help my mother-in-law? She's, she's disabled and she has a big dog. She hasn't been able to get to the clinic. Can you stop by and just take a look, And so I started getting that more and more often. And then as I looked around the footprint of Indianapolis area, there were probably 1,000 veterinary clinics, but there was no one willing to go to people's homes anymore. And if you don't know about veterinary medicine, that's how we started in veterinary medicine, many, many, many years ago, hundreds of years ago. Vets would come to people's houses, go to farms, and they would treat the people, little Black history, vets would treat the slaves because they couldn't, the slaves couldn't go to the doctor. The vets would treat the slaves, things like that. So now it's shifted more to where there's more clinic-based. You can see a lot more patients in the clinic, and it makes sense from a business standpoint, but I noticed there was a huge part of the community, particularly the Black community in Indianapolis, that was not able and not, doesn't have the resources to get to the clinics. And so I started Howard Veterinary Services just to fill that void that I saw in the Indianapolis area. So I had over 1,000 clients within a little less than a year. based on word of mouth, based on other clinics. Like, oh, I'm glad you go to people's houses. We always get people wanting us to come to their home, but we can't service that. So it was really more business than I can really handle, but it was good work. You know, a lot of elderly people, a lot of people with big dogs or animals that were scared to get in the car, scared to go into clinics, you know, things like that. And they would be very calm, you know, when I would see them at their home and provide those veterinary services. Work with a lot of nursing homes. A lot of those people were allowed to have pets. They need to keep their pets up to date on shots and vaccines in order to keep them in the living community. So I would go to nursing homes and I would vaccinate, you know, 30, 40 cats and dogs, you know, in one shot, just because, you know, I would be there and those individuals would put the word out and they would bring their pets, and that way they can live in those communities with their pets up to date on all their shots and vaccines. So it was a great thing. It was also good for me as a business owner. I learned so much. You know, I ran that practice up until late 2020, you know, because till COVID hit really good. But I learned so much about networking, so much about, you know, I had members of the Indianapolis Colts who were, you know, my clients. I had, you know, a lot of people who were underserved also. And I just exchanged so much information with other business leaders, and we learned how to help each other. So, you know, the way that works, you have something that a service that you can provide. They have a service that you might be interested in too. You might barter, you know, things like that. So that was pretty cool to find out, not to mention the tax implications. I had no idea about the tax, you know, benefits of owning your own business. So my Howard Veterinary Services was an LLC, limited liability. And so had a certified accountant in small business teach me a lot about, you know, finances. Had a financial planner that taught me a lot. And so I used my career, my main career, to supplement, you know, my private practice. And then I used both of those to really, you know, get a good financial foothold for me and my family.
Great. All right. So you was talking about how the pandemic impacted business. Do you have any like tips for keeping pets safe during the pandemic?
Certainly. So pandemic definitely impacted business, not in a bad way for veterinarians. I mean, actually, my services were more sought after during the pandemic. The problem was I didn't want to expose myself and my family to these homes that I was going into. You just never know what you see when you're doing house calls. I mean, you go knock on the door, they open the door, and boom, it's whatever's back there. You have no idea. And let me tell you, I could write a book and tell stories about some of the stuff I encountered. So when the pandemic hit, because I had a primary career, I didn't necessarily need to take that risk or put my family at risk during that time. But as far as keeping your pet safe during the pandemic, our animals are very similar to us. And so you really want to avoid things, you know, that just like we are. You're not wanting to be at the dog parks. You're not want to be at the big, you know, gatherings of pets, you know, the big doggy training sessions that some of the commercial places hold, like PetSmart. It's just not the time to be commingling dogs. A lot of the veterinary practices have actually did a kind of a curbside service where instead of waiting in the waiting room with your pets like you used to with a bunch of pets mingling, now, you know, you're doing you show up, your pet comes in, the owner goes back to the car, the pet is examined and taken care of, and then, you know, the owner's called back in to pick up their pet. So but the same precautions you would take for yourself, you kind of can take for your pet. Keep them vaccinated, keep them, you know, on their regular schedules as far as dentals and physical exams. Now, there's not a COVID vaccine for pets. However, we do have coronavirus vaccines we've been giving pets for years. It's not the same. I know some people are like, oh, well, they've always had coronavirus. Like, it's different. It's a different strain. This one is totally different. But you want to keep your pet up to date on their shots and vaccinations so they don't fall behind, because it's hard to get into a vet clinic right now. There are so much demand. People are home with their pets more now because of the pandemic, and they're working from home than they were before. So people are recognizing symptoms and signs of illness in their pets that they wouldn't have recognized when they used to be working 8 hours a day and then coming home. So veterinary business is booming, and we really don't have enough veterinarians to meet the demand. So keep your animals up to date, you know, that way you don't end up in these emergency situations that could have been prevented, and then you're stuck trying to get into an appointment where there may not be as much availability.
All right. So I know you're active when it comes to community outreach. Just speak on the importance of increasing diversity in the profession.
Oh man, that's very near and dear to my heart. I mean, it's a passion of mine. Being a veterinarian is not something that I knew of many Black people doing. I can't tell you how many times during my house calls, practices, and things, people would be like, give me a strange look when they see that I was a Black guy, or just say, I don't think meaning it in a bad way, but just saying, I didn't know you people became veterinarians, or I didn't know, Black people like veterinary medicine like that. So it's very important to me, being a young pert kid growing up in the rural area, not seeing, any Black people, in that profession. I remember when I saw my first, like I said, when I went to Tuskegee and saw a Black doctor in the white coat that was a veterinarian for the first time, I can't tell you how much that shook me, in a good way. It was such an inspiring, feeling. And that's the feeling that I said, I'm going to always try to pay that back to my community wherever I'm at. And so I have always, from a student in veterinary school to now, not as much in person due to the pandemic, more web, meetings. I've always tried to give back to the community, mentor students, just let them know how good of a profession veterinary medicine can be for minorities. The veterinary profession is probably one of the least diverse professions in general. I mean, it's just, you just don't, most of your minorities came from Tuskegee that are in veterinary medicine, over 75%. I think Cornell University does a great job, and then some other schools are starting to do a little bit better, but it's not a lot of diversity. So I also realize that even as I climb the ladder to success, I'm still the only minority in the room a lot of times, and so that's very important to me. So I do outreach to, to students from, grade school, middle school, kindergarten, on up to high school, college, PhD, master's students, on up to even human MDs, just giving them that context, of how human and animal health are one medicine, how we're all connected. So, but I do get a lot of positive feedback when I go to schools. I wear the white coat. I put on my stethoscope because I know visually that has an impact on young Black, men and women, that I'm interacting with, because I know it had an impact on me. So, if anytime churches, schools, or anybody's calling for me, to share some positive words, to talk about veterinary medicine, where it's taking me, I literally have traveled all over the world. Coming out of rural South Carolina, I would have never expected, to have done any of that. And, even my family didn't understand the gravity of what, I could do in this profession. So that's been my message to the kids is, you just never know, your potential, and you have limitless potential when it comes to chasing your dreams. And so veterinary medicine was a passion of mine, and I'm happy to share that, to all the young people, in our underserved communities.
Like I said, the real life Dr. Doolittle. So understanding that gravity entails talking about your current role, and that is the USA Regional Head Veterinarian for Labcorp Early Development Laboratories. What does that leadership role entail?
Oh man, it's a big thing. It's a big deal. Like I said before, diversity and inclusion is important to me. I could have easily, been happy with the amount of success I had already gained over my last 10 years with Covance previously, and now LabCorp, which acquired the organization where I was the head vet at the site. But I saw an opportunity to be able to create jobs, to be able to, once again, be a positive influence on a large organization. So LabCorp is global. Sites all over the world. Most people are familiar with the diagnostics and lab testing in human hospitals. Maybe not as familiar with their influence and impact in the research and drug development side, which is where I lead a team of over 30 veterinarians across the United States who oversee animal research programs. So as a part of that, my role, it's not just unique to, animals and research. I know it also is an opportunity for me to demonstrate leadership, to kind of demonstrate some of the ideals that Dr. MLK talked about. I actually just hosted one of LabCorp's very first MLK Day recognition programs just Monday. And so over 500 people from around the globe on that call. And so being, once again, a positive, influence on colleagues within the organization, sharing my experiences, but also, being a leader and opening and creating opportunities for other minorities, other underserved, individuals is what I, one of the things I try to do in my new role. So, it's a big job. I mean, I'm in the hot seat all the time, and so it's not an easy job. And managing a whole lot of other doctors is not the easiest thing to do either, but it's very rewarding work. I think the drugs and therapies that we've helped, create have went on to, save a lot of lives for people and animals. We do drug development for animal drugs as well. COVID, like I said, we've been involved in a ton of that work. And so I'm happy to be one of the leaders that makes sure all of the animals that are under our care are well taken care of.
Okay. So what are some of the industry trends to look for in 2022? That can be as far as research. What should we be on the lookout for?
Oh man, there's so much going on. If you think about, human medicine, I mean, right now the focus is COVID, right? But heart disease hasn't went anywhere. Diabetes hasn't went anywhere. Alzheimer's and some of the cancer, all of those are still very much, major human health issues. And so a lot of the drugs that we work on are in those major sectors, but also some of the less known. We work on a lot of drugs that, for some very rare diseases that might impact, say, infants and things like that. And so because we are a contract research organization, we don't own the drugs. So I can't tell you exactly the names of the drugs and which companies are working on them because it's all confidential. But just be on the lookout for new advances in diabetes management for minority communities, cancer therapies. There's so much that I'm working on in my team with regard to cancer. We all know cancer is the big bad wolf out there that keeps taking us down. I'm tired of losing people to cancer. I keep saying, I got into this because I'm going to save the world one day. I mean, I say it jokingly, but literally I'm trying to do something that might actually, save a lot of people, and it already has. I do a lot of surgeries. So surgery models for things like lower back pain, and degenerative disc disease, ruptured disc, those are things that are debilitating to people. I actually experienced that myself last year. I had to have surgery, and it was almost like I developed a model and a treatment that I actually basically ended up needing myself. And so I'm glad it was there because it's nothing like, having those types of pains and issues. And so, but there's a lot that's going on. We also work with medical devices. So things like pacemakers and things for people, stents for people who have, heart conditions and heart attacks. So, but I'd say the thing to look out for, the big sector, of course, is immunotherapy, particularly for things around cancer and autoimmune disease. Those are very, very big ticket items right now.
Okay. All right. So what do you find most rewarding about your career?
So one of the reasons I got into this was into research in veterinary medicine in general. I have a passion for helping people and serving people and their animals. I understand that animals are a big part of most people's lives, whether you have a pet directly or, you just, are somewhat indirectly connected. Animals are such a big part of our day-to-day and have helped us advance society to where we are with regards to medicine, food production, et cetera. So as a veterinarian, working in private practice, what I learned is, I don't care how many animals I see. I can see it, I can work 24 hours a day the rest of my life, and I'll still only impact a small group of animals and people. However, working in research and drug development, I have the opportunity to impact positively the lives of millions of people around the globe, as well as animals. So, the most rewarding thing to me is just being able to see and be on the front lines of some of the therapies that are going to save lives, that are going to improve the quality of lives of people that I know personally have been impacted, by cancer, diabetes. That's all in my family. We've seen all of that. We've lost people to things like that. Now COVID, we've had issues with that around the world, and to know that the work that I do every day is going to go to combat some of those things and save a lot of lives is why I do what I do. And, it's really rewarding work because I actually get to see sometimes the drugs and the treatments go from the concept when a small company is just trying to figure out, hey, I got this thing that might help, it might work, and helping that company get it all the way to people and getting that out into the public where they can actually influence and save, lives. That's the most rewarding thing. I've now been involved in, at least 5 that I'm aware of. Like I said, we don't get to know the names and things. They just put some arbitrary tag on it because we're working with various pharma companies. But, they sometimes do come back and tell us that treatment therapy you were working on is now called XYZ out in the marketplace, and it is working well and saving lives. So that's where, it's almost like the Super Bowl for me. That's where, I get the payback for all the hard work and all the animals that we've utilized and, see those benefits. And so, and once again, I've had that on the human sector, and also I've developed drugs to help pets, and animals in the food production industry go on and be healthier and live longer lives. So that's very rewarding.
Okay. So, what's something about you that people would find surprising? Now, before you answer that, I'm going to steal the answer that I think you're going to give. So, I mean, I've always known Mo to be an avid fisherman. So now you can't use that one.
You took away my fisherman, man. Look, that's a tough one. Now you're gonna make me think. Something that people might not know about me. I guess one of the things that I'm gotten into is, it's kind of weird, but it's this new family rivalry is cornhole. I don't know if you've ever played cornhole.
Oh, I played.
But that is the new thing. I never played it until I went to Indiana. I actually started playing cornhole when I started working for the Indianapolis Colts. That's a little side thing that I was doing while I was being a veterinarian. I had a friend who worked with them, and so I worked with the Colts for 4 years behind the scenes in the NFL, and that was a big deal in the locker room. They would put down thousands of dollars on one shot, and so I learned how to play, and then my family took a liking to it. So right now, anytime the family gets together, if we're not fishing, we're playing cornhole. So, and it is the women, the men, families, the groups are partnering up. So, if you're down with cornhole and you want some competition, when this pandemic lifts, we about to get on it, because it's the new fun thing for us to do, and it's pretty safe. You don't have to, you don't hurt yourself like, playing all basketball and other sports I used to play.
Yeah, we're getting a little too old for that. But I mean, no tailgate is complete without cornhole. So
really, yeah, tailgating and barbecue, of course. Like most men of my age, we stop focusing on other things and we start trying to perfect meat. So I am one of those people who is, totally in tune to making my ribs the perfect ribs, the right tenderness, the sauces, and the seasonings, and trying all types of different barbecuing techniques. So that's probably the other thing that I'm spending time doing when I'm not trying to fish.
Okay. All right. So as we prepare to close, with this kid that grew up in Marion, South Carolina, did you envision your journey playing out like this?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I thought I would just have a job, make a little bit of money, and just kind of live a quiet life, not too far from where I grew up. This journey through veterinary medicine, like I said, has taken me far beyond any of my expectations. I never thought that I would, spend months in China. I never thought I'd be in Europe and Germany and, all over the world and just about every place in the United States through being a veterinarian, understanding, working with human doctors around the world, working with veterinarians around the world. So, experiencing some of the cultures that I've seen, it's been, an amazing thing. I can't say, it's almost like it's beyond my wildest dreams what I've been able to live so far, and it just continues to get better. I get more and more exposure to newer things. I get more responsibilities, and the main thing is just to stay humble, throughout this journey, because God has kind of really led me, through a lot of things, and has really, surpassed my own, desires. Like if I would have had the life that I thought I would have, I'd have me, I might have me a dope wide trailer somewhere in a boat. And, that'd just be it. I'd just be doing some job, working in some factory or teaching, doing something, but I've been given a platform, and I've been, been able to utilize that platform to impact a lot of people and enjoy life and create a better life for my family. So, income-wise, finances-wise, just beyond anything my family's ever seen, anything I would have ever dreamed of, and, experience-wise, just seeing things and experience, life that, I would have never thought of growing up in rural country, dusty dirt roads in small Marion, South Carolina.
I mean, that's truly the American dream,
Right on. That is the American dream, and as we celebrate MLK, I'd be remiss to think that I've done this on my own. It's because of people like him, that have kind of paved the way for people like myself, yourself, and others, to be able to live the American dream, which was not given to us. We had to fight for it, and so I feel like it's my duty to make sure I am living his dream, being a part of that, and not just living the dream, but being the dream. So, I just want to be a productive member of our community and society, and influence and help as many people as I can along the way during my time here on this earth.
All right. So feel free, Dr. Howard, to plug whatever you need to plug. If beyond everything, all the jewels you've dropped during this interview, if you still have a parting shot, you can leave us with that as well.
Oh man, I just really want to encourage us to really continue to celebrate each other's success. I think that in the Black community, it's pretty hard and isolating when you start to achieve certain levels of personal success, whether you're in corporations, whether you have your own business. We got to support each other. So that's one of the things that I'm focusing on and have focused on later here in life, is supporting my other minorities in their business ventures, making sure I am giving them as much of a shout out as I would some other consumable that I would that I have no affiliation with. So I'm so proud and so happy of all the minority people who have started their own businesses, who have made their way up the corporate ladder, and are doing great things. And there's so many of us. And so I just encourage everyone and challenge everyone to, drop a line to people who you've been watching and you notice they're doing good. You never know. They could be having a bad day. They could be feeling discouraged. Let's just continue to uplift each other, man. I'd like to think back to, Tulsa, Oklahoma and Black Wall Street, and how those, individuals must have supported each other in order to get to that point, to where others were so jealous they had to burn it and tear it down. I want us to get back to that. I want us to get so powerful, so together, that people they're like, man, how in the world are these people living so well? How are they doing it like this? So I know we can do it, because just from Winthrop and then I think about Tuskegee, and then I think about Stanford, and there are so many pockets of excellence, and people doing big and great things. So I just want to support that, and that's what I want to plug is, continuing to promote Black excellence, unity, getting rid of the division, the hate, the divisiveness. That time for that is over, man. We just got to come together.
All right. Well, with this episode, I wanted to celebrate your excellence. I mean, I noticed from afar just all of the amazing work you have been doing, and I was like, wow, I didn't feel like you was getting your just due. So I wanted to make sure that you knew at least this person from Winthrop, appreciated all of those accolades and accomplishments, and you making the world a better place. So I salute you, Dr. Howard.
Man, I appreciate that, my brother. I really appreciate that, man. And you know, I feel like I get, you know, enough respect and accolades, but for you recognizing, you know, a little bit more needs to be done. That's what I think we all need to do. And I've been watching you as well, brother. I've been very, very proud of what you guys have been doing, what you've been doing, and, you know, and giving other people like myself the opportunity, you know, to be celebrated and to be recognized for all the hard work. So thank you, my brother, for inviting me. And I'm glad we were able to, you know, connect and have this discussion.
All right. I appreciate it. Anytime, whenever you need to, I guess, make a special announcement, just hit me up. Let me get dibs on the breaking news.
Hey, I will do, my brother, and I'll be supporting you along the way. And so, you know, just keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm proud of you. And you know, the sky's the limit, man. I know you're taking this thing, and there's no limits to where you could be in the next couple of years. So happy for you, man.
Yeah, there'll be some announcements coming soon, so be on the lookout. And for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.